Yes, my friends, the days are flying by way too fast, and just thinking that in the blink of an eye, we'll be in another season already gives me chills. The Rams are getting ready, and I hope to see a winning team this year. Today, I want to talk about the wide receivers and many other things that are happening right now. But before anything else, make sure you've already hit the like button, but only do it if you're a real Los Angeles Rams fan. If possible, write down below what the best Rams moment is that you remember and miss. Now, I want to address this point. I want to bring up what many of you have been saying, because, honestly, the fans' perspective matters a lot on this channel. Let's go back to the discussion about the wide receivers, because this is where opinions start to differ. Although the market is clearly shrinking, with George Pickens likely staying in Dallas and Brandon Ayuk practically untouchable due to his contract and situation, some fans are already thinking outside the box. There's a growing feeling that if the Rams really needed a boost at the wide receiver position, they could simply go after an established name like Stefon Diggs. And while that may sound exciting at first, the reality is always more complex. Contracts, locker room adaptation, and long-term planning all come into play. Even so, this shows that fans are not convinced the current group of wide receivers is completely untouchable. At the same time, there's also a more patient approach being discussed. Instead of forcing a trade, some believe the smarter move would be to wait out situations like Ayuk's and potentially pick up talent if they get released, rather than giving up valuable assets. That kind of thinking aligns with how the Rams have operated in the past, opportunistic but calculated. Now shifting to the quarterback situation, because this is where things get really interesting. There's a strong belief among parts of the fan base that Ty Simpson is already the clear QB2 heading into the season, and that would be a bold but telling decision. The argument is simple. If Stetson Bennett truly had what it takes to lock down that role, he would have already done it by now. On the other hand, there are still fans defending Bennett, pointing to his preseason performances and vishwas that he can still develop into a reliable option if given the chance. And this divide highlights exactly where the uncertainty lies. The Rams are balancing potential versus experience, and that's never an easy call when you're trying to compete right now. Because, let's be honest, this team is not in rebuild mode. Every decision matters for immediate results. There are even more creative ideas floating around. Some fans are suggesting moves like trying to bring Jimmy Garoppolo back for another season to stabilize the backup role, or even exploring trades involving depth players to improve other areas. Whether those ideas are realistic or not, they reflect a fan base that's actively thinking about how to maximize this roster in the short term without sacrificing the future. And speaking of overlooked areas, one comment that really stands out, and honestly doesn't get enough attention, is special teams. There's real concern about kickoff and return coverage units. It's one of those aspects of the game that doesn't dominate headlines, but it can absolutely swing field position and momentum in tight games. If the Rams want to be a complete team, that's an area that needs to be solid, not just acceptable. Meanwhile, when it comes to the 49ers, let's just say the patience is not exactly there. A lot of fans simply don't care what San Francisco is doing, and some are going even further, saying they wouldn't feel sorry if the 49ers never won another game again. That rivalry energy is alive and well, and it adds even more intensity to everything happening in the division right now. And then there's the financial reality around Matthew Stafford. Some fans believe this entire situation with Ty Simpson won't affect him at all. The expectation is that Stafford will continue to be paid at a high level, potentially in the $40 to $50 million range annually, and remain the leader of this team without any real controversy. From that perspective, drafting Simpson isn't a threat, it's just preparation for the future. When you put all of this together, what you get is a fan base that's engaged, divided on certain topics, but very aware of what's at stake. There's excitement about the roster improvements, especially on defense, but also real questions about depth, strategy, and how aggressive this team should be moving forward. And that's what makes this moment so fascinating. The Rams are not a team full of obvious answers right now. They're a team full of possibilities. Some of those possibilities could take them deep into the playoffs, while others could expose gaps that haven't been fully addressed yet. So now I want to hear from you. Looking at these fan perspectives and everything happening behind the scenes, do you agree that Ty Simpson should already be considered the clear backup quarterback? Or do you think the Rams should rely on experience and bring in a veteran to secure that position? There's another layer here that can't be ignored, and that's how all these internal decisions reflect the Rams' true identity heading into the season. Because when you look at everything we've talked about, from passing on wide receiver moves to trusting internal development, it really feels like Sean McVay and this front office are doubling down on something very specific: continuity over chaos. They're not chasing every big name. They're not reacting emotionally to what other teams are doing, and that's either a sign of confidence or a calculated risk. Take the tight end room, for example. This is something that hasn't gotten nearly enough attention from fans, but it could quietly become one of the biggest strengths of this offense. You've got Tyler Higbee, Colby Parkinson, Terrence Ferguson, and now Max Klare entering the mix. That's not just depth, that's versatility. And if McVay uses it correctly, this could completely change how defenses approach the Rams week to week. But it also raises a concern that some fans have hinted at indirectly. How do you keep all these players involved without becoming predictable? Because if certain tight ends are only used in specific situations, blocking versus receiving, defenses will pick up on that quickly. And in a division as competitive as the NFC West, those small tendencies get exposed fast. Another point that keeps coming up in conversations is roster balance. You see fans throwing out ideas like moving pieces around, trading depth, or even making unexpected cuts to open space for new additions. And while not all of those ideas are realistic, they highlight something important. There's a sense that this team might still be one move away from feeling complete. And that brings us back to the quarterback room one more time, because everything ultimately revolves around that position. If Stafford stays healthy, the Rams are contenders. It's that simple. But if he misses time, all of these debates about Bennett, Simpson, or a potential veteran become very real, very fast. That's not just a depth chart discussion, that's a season-defining variable. You can feel that tension building, not just inside the organization, but among the fans as well. Some are ready to trust the young guys, embrace the future, and see what happens. Others want that safety net, that proven backup who can step in without the entire system collapsing. And honestly, both sides have valid points. What's clear is that the Rams are walking a very fine line right now. They've improved in key areas, they've made strategic decisions, and they've positioned themselves to compete. But there's still just enough uncertainty to keep everyone watching closely. And maybe that's what makes this team so compelling heading into the season. Not because everything is perfectly solved, but because it isn't. Because there are still battles to be won in training camp, roles to be defined, and decisions that could shape the entire year. Now, I want to hear from you again. If you had to make the call today, would you trust the current roster exactly as it is? Or would you still push for one more key move before Week 1 to eliminate these doubts? Go Rams!